Hello, welcome back to the Over 40s Fitness Podcast with Tristan Lowe, that's me. And today we're part 3 of a 4-stage conversation throughout January on the benefits of strength training. For those of you watching on YouTube, you can see here, this little diagram here. This is taken from one of my study books back from 2008. Now at the time I studied anatomy and physiology in Nottingham City, and a lot of the information that we learned during our lessons was far more in-depth than I thought I knew. And of course, that's the whole point of going to study. So here we are. I'm just going to read out a short paragraph from one of my study books. Now, this is the basic resistance progression that we would give a client, a relatively new client, maybe someone who's done some form of exercise before in the past, but in terms of starting a client with regards to strength training. We have to physically progress a client, okay, and that's given over a logical approach. That could be taking a client and giving them some form of strength training for about 4 weeks, okay, as maximum 8 weeks, but we say 4 weeks because people that are quite new to things, they can find that their bodies adapt, or their brain or their nervous system or their stimulation or their interest can adapt, but quickly it can also unravel quickly as well, i.e. boredom, mental boredom, not stimulated enough, or their bodies can quickly go to sleep because they're not being stimulated enough. So what we have to do as trainers is to try and preempt that and recognize when a client's brain, body, attitude, approach becomes complacent, with actual training itself. And the early warning signs for that are their bodies don't change or the way that we expected them to or we'd like them to. Now, of course, that's based over a number of reasons. That could be they have poor sleep, poor nutrition, poor lifestyle. They might train twice a week as a beginner in light strength training using correct movements with good posture as well. But they might have too many late nights, erratic sleep. They might have a highly stressful job or high stress levels at home. So we have to take all those things into account. They could also have smoking problems. They may have poor nutrition. They could have musculoskeletal injuries or not have, believe it or not, a body shape, a somatotype that lends itself well to strength training. So someone like myself at 6'4" and 180 pounds, I'm built for sports and leverage, not necessarily from brute strength. Okay, now someone of 180 pounds, my weight, but only 5'9", 5'10", more predisposed to moving a heavy object from A to B. Okay, but there's a lot more that goes into that. Now, we talk about planning programs. Now, let's say we get to week 8. We've got a pyramid of exercises, and we get to week 8 now. We've gone from week 1 to week 4, and we've made some very, very slight changes, and that may be if they're doing a bench press, a deadlift, a squat, lunges, shoulder press, or back row, we may add more weight to the bar. We may take more weight off and add more repetitions. But essentially what we do, we stimulate the musculoskeletal frame and the nervous system by making changes. So the person's body and brain have to keep on adapting, have to recognize change and adapt to it. We're at week 8 now, and let's just say I wouldn't say we've nailed the nutrition, but the client is now consuming more protein, consuming more, which is a macronutrient, consuming more healthy fats, consuming more good sources of quality carbohydrates at the right time of day. They're sleeping an extra 15 to 30 minutes a night. All of those things combined by week 8 are certainly going to have a benefit on the client's training, on how you actually perform your strength moves. So now what we've got is a better sleep pattern, a better nutrition plan, not perfect, but certainly better. The client may have cut down on his or her alcohol intake. And if they're smokers, they may have cut down from 20 a day to 10 a day, or 10 a day to 5 a day. Now, what we do then, we'll take that client and add some more multi-directional planes of movement. We'll move left, right, diagonal, backwards, not just up and down and forward, as you'd see in most leisure centres and gyms. Most people that are new to strength training, especially if they don't come from a sporting background, they'll train just in a forward plane. That's forward, maybe back, up and down. Anything where they can see themselves in a mirror. And there's very little or minimal lateral or diagonal movement or rotation. And the reason being is because they don't know. They don't come from a sporting background. As a trainer and a sports massage therapist, I often saw in gyms and health clubs that I'd worked in myself, I would quietly raise an eyebrow if I saw another trainer training a client week in, week out, and they never gave them any different plane of movement. It was always sat on a bench facing a mirror, or standing in front of the mirror, or at the very most lying on the floor. Now we take into account a client may have very, very poor proprioception and very, very poor spatial awareness and balance. But most people, their body will start to adapt and improve, given that you give them some form of strength stimulus in different angles. And a great example of a good strength athlete is not necessarily the world's strongest man. It could be a strength athlete, someone in the NFL or the NBA, someone who can move left, right, up and down, forward and back. You know, a super middleweight boxer or mixed martial artist, they can actually move in multiple planes of movement with an element of strength and force. Rugby players, they don't just move forward, they have to move left and right and diagonal as well. So that's possibly a better example of degrees of strength, and of course we need those for daily function. All right, so looking at this pyramid here, we would then go on to the hypertrophy. Now, hypertrophy is essentially a long-winded term for not just getting strong, but getting your body into a more aesthetically pleasing state, as in the muscle is now visible to the naked eye. You're not just internally stronger or carrying more internal muscle mass, you've got the hypertrophy. In other words, your muscles have adapted to the new stimulus of sleep, nutrition and strength training to a point where they are now visible, certainly to yourself and at best to someone else. Okay, so that's hypertrophy. And with that comes a different type of strength training where you would have to actually do multiple sets of one exercise. Let's take a deadlift. You'd have to do up to maybe 8 sets of deadlifts, and not with the heaviest weight you can move, not a 1 rep or 3 rep max, possibly 15 or as much as 25 repetitions of each set. And you're doing a form of volume training where you're pushing so much blood into the muscle tissue that you're training, it's full of oxygen-filled and nutrient-filled blood cells. And then, of course, with the adequate rest and sleep and nutrition after, it begins to adapt and grow. Okay, so hypertrophy. A client may ultimately wish to progress to a program where aesthetics are the main goal and begin to gravitate towards training for hypertrophy. This type of training should only be embarked on once a solid foundation of technique, posture, and basic cardiovascular and flexibility fitness has been built. Okay, so what we're saying here, that paragraph is saying it is fundamentally incorrect for a trainer to take a new client and train them with the sole goal of looking good. Okay, we're talking a new client, someone who's not used to exercise. They don't even play sport, they never have done. Maybe when they're at school 20, 30 years ago. Because quite often what can happen is those aesthetics, that body beautiful image is extremely hard to attain. Yeah, okay, and it's almost nigh impossible to maintain for the rest of your life. Okay, yes, beauty is in the eye of the beholder to some degree, but we're talking about a great for men, good strong shoulders, a V-taper, wider shoulders than a waist, good strong broad back, lean abdominals, not necessarily a six-pack, but certainly flat abdominals. Okay, that's a good sign of health as well. Strong upper arms, strong quadriceps, glutes and hamstrings. Now, all those things will help you stand up straight, stand up tall, and necessarily feel good. But in order to get someone to a reasonable, if not good level of hypertrophy, in other words, aesthetics, how you look, is very, very hard to do. Okay, I would say only 1, maybe 2 out of 10 people that we could train actually end up, I hate to use the phrase body beautiful, but let's say with good aesthetics, with a physically attractive physique, a man or a woman. Now, what can happen there is a client could get injured, trying to achieve that goal, trying to achieve a hypertrophy. All right, now, someone might answer and say, well, perhaps they've been shown a poor technique. We could demonstrate a very good technique to a client because we're trainers, we're used to it, we do it day and night. But it could take a client weeks, if not months, to actually perform a technique, an 8 out of 10. And a classic example of that is a stiff leg deadlift or a full body deadlift, because it's very hard for a client to maintain neutral spine going close to the ground in a deadlift or even a squat. they may be able to physically move a weight from A to B off the floor, but we're talking a curved back, a curved neck, a curved cervical spine, chin in the wrong position, and it takes years. Minimum is 3 years to learn how to lift weights lift well, excuse me. So, all right, let's take into account then that if you're going to get into strength training, not necessarily for hypertrophy, aesthetics, get into it to strengthen your body, to make it feel better, to stand taller, to reduce your body fat, have a good posture, make you actually walk to work with a smile on your face, or get over a musculoskeletal injury. Don't just get into strength training for the body beautiful image. Again, remember, it is extremely hard to attain and nigh impossible to maintain. There will be outliers out there, someone who can actually do that, but we're talking one in a few, perhaps less than 2 in 10, perhaps 1 in 10 or 1 in 20. Now, so what we tend to do as trainers, we'll take a client and say, okay, right, you're not going to look like Batman, you're not going to look like Wonder Woman. What is going to happen is you're going to reduce your body fat by 3, 5, 10%, depending on what their body fat levels are when they come in. I've trained clients before at a very dedicated level, whereby a client has lost as much as 20% body fat, and so I think some even more. But that takes 1 to 2 years minimum. I've trained clients that have lost up to 9 stone. I've trained clients that have reduced their visceral fat from 18, 19, their visceral abdominal organ fat, right down to 12, 11, 10 even. But it takes a lot of hard work and dedication and consistency with high quality, good nutrition most of the time. So if you are thinking of getting to strength training, don't do it for vanity. Do it for sanity. Do it because it makes you feel good first, stand taller, get rid of sports, work-related injuries or sports injuries or poor posture. Reduces your dress size, reduces the notch on your belt for the gents. Okay, you get your clothes start to look better, feel better. Do that first. And if at some point down the line your strength training gives you a better aesthetic, then good for you. It's gonna make you look good. It's gonna make your husband or your wife or your girlfriend or your boyfriend appreciate you even more. It's gonna make an employer trust you more because you're now healthier and you look better. That comes with time. But first off, strength training to make yourself healthy first. Okay, and there it is. So hypertrophy, aesthetics, put those to the side. If it's an ultimate goal for yourself, then great. All right, but that must come second. What must come first is good internal health. And then later on, you want to be pleasing to the eye. Okay, my name's Tristan Lowe. It's the Over 40s Fitness Podcast with Tristan Lowe. I think we're in the 3rd week in January 2024 now. And if you'd like to comment, like and subscribe, part 4 of my discussion about strength training will come next week. And please, welcome back and thanks for watching and listening.